Hopefully you have already watched the first video in this series, otherwise this video will be of limited use. In that video, I showed that the only way to resolve the paradox that appeared was to assume that an observer moving alongside a test electron overestimates force by a factor of 1 over the square root of 1 minus v squared. What I am going to do now is to justify that by showing how the formulae of relativity make that overestimate inevitable. In the late 1800s, physicists developed the three basic formulae of relativity: length contraction, mass dilation, and time dilation. Length contraction means that objects moving through space contract in their direction of travel by a factor of the square root of 1 minus v squared, where v is the speed of the object expressed as a fraction of the speed of light. Mass dilation means that moving objects increase their mass by 1 over the square root of 1 minus v squared, hence an observer moving alongside such an object must underestimate mass by the square root of 1 minus v squared, as in his reference frame the object is stationary. Time dilation means that a moving clock runs slow by a factor of the square root of 1 minus v squared, hence a moving observer underestimates time by a factor of the square root of 1 minus v squared. Force is measured in units such as kilogram meters per square second, that is mass times distance divided by time squared. The distance moved is purely perpendicular to the direction of motion of our observer. Since there is no such thing as width contraction, our observer measures perpendicular distance accurately. He underestimates mass by the square root of 1 minus v squared due to mass dilation. Due to this alone he would underestimate force by the square root of 1 minus v squared, but he also underestimates time by the square root of 1 minus v squared, due to the slowing of his clock, and he does this twice over as the time is squared. Due to this alone he would overestimate force by 1 over 1 minus v squared. So taken together he overestimates force by 1 over the square root of 1 minus v squared. As this is so simple and straightforward, how come physicists seem unaware of it? It is because special relativity is taught in such a way as to make the universe appear to be strange, mystical, and supernatural, which is understandable as humans love to believe in the supernatural. However, it does make understanding the universe almost impossible. Nonetheless, Feynman appears to have been at least partly aware of this, as in the Feynman lectures on physics he wrote, "Forces transform when we go from one system to another." Let us now take a quick look at a few other videos. In Don Lincoln's Fermilab video, he attributes magnetic attraction solely to the test electron seeing the wire protons as length contracted. If this was the case, the force would be 1 over the square root of 1 minus v squared, which tends to infinity as v tends to the speed of light, but at low speeds approximates to a half v squared, half the value in Maxwell's equations. I once added a comment to one of Don's videos, but physicists are very religious people, who cannot abide criticism of their beliefs, so he immediately deleted my comment. If you watched Veritasium's video, you will quite likely have got the impression that he was saying the same as Don Lincoln. In fact, Veritasium does actually faithfully describe the nonsense theory given in Purcell's Relativity and Magnetism, first published in 1965, and believed by physicists ever since. In this theory, the magnetic force is attributed to both the test electron seeing the wire proton's length contracted, and also seeing the wire electron's unlength contracted, giving a net force of 1 over the square root of 1 minus v squared, minus the square root of 1 minus v squared, which equals v squared over the square root of 1 minus v squared, which tends to infinity as v tends to the speed of light, but at low speeds approximates to v squared. Purcell seems to have thought this was good enough, but in the Feynman lectures on physics, Feynman apparently multiplies v squared over the square root of 1 minus v squared, by the square root of 1 minus v squared, to give v squared, writing, "Things are even better than that, because forces transform when we go from one system to another." In comments on his Science Asylum video, Nick Lucid does actually try to justify the idea length uncontraction, but there are a number of replies by novices pointing out why the concept is utter nonsense. However, Nick ignores these comments and remains resolute in his belief in mainstream nonsense. I did add a comment to the video, but physicists are very religious people, who cannot abide criticism of their beliefs, so he immediately deleted my comment. Let us now have a reality check. What these physicists do not seem to realize is that in the reference frame of an observer moving along with a test electron moving along a current-carrying wire, the whole circuit, including the battery, is actually moving past him. If you do move a circuit past a test electron, then the force will indeed be v squared over the square root of 1 minus v squared, and the force will indeed tend to infinity as v tends to the speed of light. This is obvious, because we have shown that the force on a test electron moving along a current-carrying wire is v squared, and since a moving observer overestimates force by 1 over the square root of 1 minus v squared, it follows that an observer moving alongside the test electron will measure the force to be v squared over the square root of 1 minus v squared. By the principle of relativity, that means that a stationary observer with a current-carrying wire moving past at speed v, such that the wire electrons are stationary, must also measure a force of v squared over the square root of 1 minus v squared. However, this leads to another paradox. This is paradox 2. A stationary test electron beside a moving current-carrying wire feels a force of v squared over the square root of 1 minus v squared, but where does the force come from, as a stationary electron can only feel an electric force, and not a magnetic force, so the differing speeds of the wire electrons and wire protons is irrelevant. If you cannot resolve the paradox yourself, you will have to buy my book. If you do not fancy the idea of giving money to a heretic, then you can instead watch my next video for more outrageous heresy.